What's new, crew? Welcome back to my channel. If you're new, my name's Cassandra, and today the name of the game is clearing out the freezers to make room for a whole pig that is coming in the next couple of days. So we're clearing out a ton of freezer produce, some old pork cuts that we don't use as often, making sure that we're getting those taken care of, and of course making some dinner and some cookies and lots of other things. So come along with me and let's get it all taken care of for the pig. I am going to I have 6 cups of rhubarb here. I'm going to dump this into this pot here. I'm going to put some water in here. This is going to be a rhubarb concentrate, basically for a juice or a lemonade. I will link the recipe for this down below if you're interested. This is a new one for me. So we're gonna see how this goes over. I just have a lot of rhubarb in the freezer right now. I do want to save some for rhubarb strawberry jam. We'll be doing that in the next couple of days as well. But I also wanted to give this one a try just because it seems like a pretty straightforward recipe. So it calls for 12 cups of rhubarb. I have 6 here. So I'm just going to half this recipe, and I don't mind doing that for new recipes because I never know if we're going to like it or not anyways, and it's a pretty easy, just, you know, half it. It's not too bad. So I'm also going to put in 2 cups of water in here and let this kind of cook down for a little while I take a shower and get ready for the day and all of the things. We also have 4 gallons of tomatoes in here. I still have the skins on because I'm going to strain them later. I like it better that way. I'm going to keep the top just halfway kind of on it. That way the juice can still kind of steam off of it a little bit, but at least it's covered. We're gonna get our water in here. Today's mission, excuse all this behind me, I literally just got my big kids on the bus just a minute ago. But the mission for today is to clear out as many freezers as we can with produce that I have, and even some meat products. I have some ham hocks I want to roast up in the oven today. They're completely frozen. I'm hoping that doesn't hinder me too much, but we have a whole pig coming in. We just placed our order on Monday. Today is Wednesday. It's gonna be coming in fairly quickly, and I need to make sure we have room for it. It's also hunting season is right upon us. Youth hunt is like a week from now, and then obviously full-blown hunting season is right after that. So I need to make sure that our freezers have as much room as possible, because my husband was just asking me last night, do we have enough freezer room? Do we need to buy a freezer? And I basically need to let him know within the next like 2 or 3 days if we need another freezer or not. So we're going to be clearing out as much as we can, making as much room as we can, and then assessing the situation. So we're starting with this freezer in here. We're going to move down to the chest freezers in the basement, maybe even some in the garage, but we're going to be going through older meat from the last pig that we got, rotating through some things and figuring out what we have to do. So that's what we're doing today. We are preserving, and then in between preserving, we are going to be organizing freezers, cleaning freezers, and I also promised my kids that I would make some peanut butter M&M cookies. I picked up this bag last night, and we already have a couple handfuls missing out of it, surprisingly. But I told the kids that I'd make some peanut butter M&Ms for their after-school snack today. So between all of that stuff, I also have to make at least a batch of cookies, because I told the kids I would have this ready for them when they got off the bus. So today's gonna be a busy one. Let's get these cooking down. I'm gonna take a shower, get ready, and then we can hop into all the things that we were talking about. Here is what I ended up pulling out of the freezer. I have 2 packages of fresh pork hocks. This one here is from the pig that we got last fall. So we got half a pig last fall, half a pig this spring. This is from fall, this is from spring. This is pork neck bones. These are also from the ones we got in the spring. What I'm going to do is throw all of these in this roaster. We're going to put it in the oven. I should have pulled these out last night, but I just forgot. It's okay, they're frozen. What I would love to do if they were not frozen is to braise them in my Dutch oven first, sear off each side, and then put them in this roaster pan to kind of roast off. But nonetheless, I think it's still going to be delicious. My plan is to roast these in the oven nice and slow. I have a little bit of beef broth starting to come together here. I'm gonna put in about 1.5 cups of beef broth. We're gonna season them with just some pepper and some seasoned salt. I might throw in some onions because I have those from the garden that need to be used up. I'm going to cover them, throw them in the oven probably at maybe 350 for a couple of hours and just let them go nice and slow. I'm gonna pull all the meat off of these and just put them into a Ziploc freezer bag and put these back in the freezer. They're gonna take up much less room this way. All of the bones, I think I might save to do some bone broth with, or I might just give all the bones to my dogs. We'll see what ends up happening. Because the name of the game is trying to clean out the freezer, I don't really want to have to put the bones back in the freezer. So we'll see what happens here. I've never used pork hocks before. Typically you would use these as a base for like a bean and bacon soup, a split pea soup, maybe a potato soup. I'm also trying to think of what I want to do for dinner. Still half ready, but I want to get as much going as I can before my 1-year-old wakes up, which is typically the name of the game for me. But my husband has a meeting tonight after work, so he's not gonna be home tonight. So I'm also looking for like an easy dinner that I can just throw together. And I'm thinking, because I'm gonna have this meat, I might just do a loaded potato soup. We'll see how that comes to fruition though, because that means I'm gonna have to go to the garden and harvest some potatoes. But I'm gonna get these neck bones in here, dump in my broth, season, salt, pepper, and throw them in the oven. There are neck bones and our ham hocks here. I'm just going to pour this in. Our neck bones at the same time, just because there are some meat on those, and it's gonna make a lot of really nice delicious flavor, especially as these start to kind of roast in the oven, and all of those drippings is gonna make a really nice beautiful broth on the bottom. So I don't know, I think I'm just gonna wait and see what I get inspired to do for supper off of these, because I might as well take some of this meat and make dinner as well. We'll see how the day progresses here, but I do think I'm going to throw some onions in here. I have some carrots in here. I'm just going to throw them in here, peels and all, and just let them roast and get really beautiful and delicious. I have a lot of things coming out from the garden that I don't have time to preserve because we're taking care of this project, so I might as well just throw them in here. I used to never strain my tomatoes for spaghetti sauce. Usually I hit it with my immersion blender and the little bits of skins have never bothered us. But this year we switched our tomatoes from slicing tomatoes to paste tomatoes, and I do notice that the skins are not as forgiving. So I do take the time to strain them. I don't have a food mill. I am highly suggesting ordering one over the winter though, to have it for next preservation season. I didn't want to order it because I didn't think I preserved enough things where I would use it, but now we're getting to the point where I think I would actually get my money's worth. So I'm thinking about ordering one so I don't have to hand strain things anymore, because that does take a little bit of time. I strained my skins once with my metal strainer. I'm putting them in this strainer and I'm draining them over a bowl here, so whatever drips out I can put back into my pot. I'm just gonna let gravity do some work for me. My 1-year-old woke up, so I'm going to just hang out with the kids and let things passively run. So this is where I'm leaving my tomato skins. I'm going to run all of this through the dehydrator as well, so I'm going to have to pull my dehydrator out, but so far we've got quite a bit of juice in here. Our rhubarb is over here straining out. It's still pretty wet. I'm going to let this strain really as long as I can, and I'm just going to periodically come in and kind of smush it down a little bit and get this, as much of the juice out of it as we can. And then we've got quite a decent amount of juice down there, so we're gonna see how that goes. pork hocks are still in the oven doing their thing. On days like today, I try my best to clean as I go. I did just make breakfast, so I've got breakfast stuff up here for me and the kids. I've already got a sink full of dishes, so I'm gonna take a second here to unload my dishwasher for the day, reload the dishwasher, wash anything by hand that I have to, and just try to keep my space as clear as possible. And that just makes the stress a whole lot easier. But pretty much from this point, everything is gonna be really passive until we are picking the meat off of the bones, until we're actually canning our tomato sauce here and our rhubarb concentrate. Other than that, things are pretty hands off. So I like to take those moments where things are kind of working for me to do other things and take care of other things. So that's what's going to happen right now. But so far I'm feeling really good with how the day is running. It's only, I think it's a little after 9, and we've already got everything working and like pretty much to the point where we're going to be ready to can in a little bit. So I'm going to make sure I have my jars ready and just kind of take the next step of making sure that everything's streamlined and can be as stressless as it can be, especially on days where I'm doing a lot of little projects. I try to just be as streamlined as possible because that helps a lot with the overwhelm that can happen when you have a lot of projects running at the same time. I also needed to rinse some things, and I went to go dump this bowl out and I did not realize there were eggs in the bottom of it. This is a little harvest that my husband and the kids did a couple of days ago while I was at my sister-in-law's rehearsal dinner for her wedding. So I broke 2 eggs, but that's okay. We will use them like right away and they'll be totally fine. But I just wanted to wash the couple broccoli side shoots that were in here, some cherry tomatoes, and get those taken care of so that nothing is going to waste, even these small amounts of food. Okay, I have my rhubarb and everything here. I've let it drain for probably 2 hours. I don't think it's going to release any more juice other than whatever I can squeeze out of here. So I'm just gonna give this a really good squeeze, hope for the best, and then we're gonna go ahead and get canning. I have 3 pints here. I don't foresee myself needing any more than that. I would do half pints. I don't have any more right now. Completely ran out of those jars. So we're just gonna do it this way. It's pretty wet, but there's not like a lot of juice. This is the first time I'm doing a project like this. This is kind of the time I wish I had a food mill, because I would just run this through the food mill. That's what I don't like, because I feel like there's still so much in here and I don't want to waste it. Also, is there enough in here where it's gonna be worth my time to sit here and squeeze it out and make a big mess? Probably not. I was contemplating running that rhubarb kind of husk, whatever you want to call that, through my food process, or through the dehydrator, and then running it through the food processor to make it into a powder. I don't know. I don't know what I would use it for, but I think I'm going to do it because I know right now that I'm mentioning it, if I don't do it, someone's going to comment and say, oh, you could have used it for this, and then I'm going to feel bad. So I think I am just going to run it through the dehydrator. So these can for 10 minutes in the water bath canner. I just went ahead and double checked this. These are pretty well cooled off, so the water in my canner is cooled off. I'm gonna top these with rings and lids, get them in the water bath canner, and I did perfectly get 3 pints here. So I'm really happy with that. And this is a concentrate, so this is going to go into like a big gallon size of something, and I'm excited to give these a go. I think these are gonna be really fun over the winter. I am going to label all of these hair honeys. I made these yesterday. I will insert those clips here, but these were very simple and easy to make. I made these passively yesterday while I was running errands. So I let the crock pot cook down my pears and some pineapple that I took off of the canning shelf. Let that cook down with a little bit of water. Came home after running a couple errands, blended it up, added in my sugar, let that sit for a little bit longer, and then I gave it one last blend after I let it cook down a little bit because it was still a little bit too watery for my liking. I wanted it more the consistency of an apple butter. This is a new one for me. I've never made these before. Normally when my grandma gives me apples and pears off of her trees, I peel the pears and put them right in with my applesauce or with my apple pie filling. I think they're pretty interchangeable. They're really delicious that way. This year I decided to do something different. I just wanted to get a little bit more variety on the canning shelf. So I made this pear honey. Very good. I did taste it. I put it on a piece of toast while it was like fresh out of the crock pot before I canned anything. Really fantastic. I'm excited to have these. I think this will be a fun toast topper just to mix it up. I'm also excited because I think these are gonna be great Christmas gifts. Also, I did decide to try a reusable jar or like a recycled jar. This is just a jar that I got from Walmart. It had pizza sauce in it. I have been doing some research. I know you can use reuse tops as long as they have a silicone seal. This is Rebel canning. If this is not for you, I totally respect that. I do not see myself doing this all the time or making this a habit. I just wanted to know if it was actually possible, if it's something I could rely on. If times like 2020 came again where canning lids became very hard to find or very expensive, or wait times were a really long time for shipping, if I would be able to use this method. My in-laws do this on occasion as well, so I just wanted to give it a try. This is kind of my tester. I want to see if it lasts on the shelf, if it becomes unsealed before like my ball canning lids would, if I have any issues with it. So this is a tester. I just want to see how this goes, and this is just in case of an emergency, would I be able to do this and rely on it. We also had a situation earlier this year in April. We went without power for 8 days because a snowstorm basically wiped out the power lines here, and I wanted to know if in a situation like that, if I ran out of canning lids, would I be able to use these to can things to prevent them from going bad. So that's what this is. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Oh, while I have a minute, I am going to label all of these jars, take my rings off, and get these moved out of the way, so that way when these are done water bath canning, I can place them here. And then at that point, I'm pretty sure my tomato sauce will be pretty much on its way to also being able to be ready to can. So we're making good time today. It's a little after 10. I am also going to take a second to check my ham hocks. I haven't even checked those since I put those in the oven, but they were frozen, so I'm assuming they're going to take a little bit of time. But let's knock this off the list and get these out of my way and make room for the next batch of things that need to sit here. I started keeping just a thing of bands up here and old lids. These have come in so much handy, just having a little bowl up here in my cabinet, especially when I'm bringing jars up from the canning shelf and I need a ring to put it in the fridge, especially if it's like a jam or a jelly like this. I can just put a ring on it because I keep it up here. I never remember when I grab something off the canning shelf to grab a ring, so it's been very beneficial to have just a couple of these up here. So that's what this is. I'm gonna go get my box so I can put these right into the box and carry these down real nice like. I like to try a handful of new recipes every year just to mix it up, and I'm really happy how these turned out. Like I said, I think these are going to be really fun to pair with our apple butter and maybe a homemade loaf of bread for some of our neighbors, just as a Christmas gift or a thank you for helping us out this year. A lot of our neighbors helped plant the permaculture orchard, which was so unbelievably nice. We have another set of neighbors that plow our driveway out for us, so this is just a small way to say thank you. So far, I'm feeling really good about my list today. I am not going to go through the 6-foot chest freezer in the garage because that one's pretty well maintained. That's one we eat most often out of, and it has mostly, it's just full of garden produce right now, so, and fish. And our latest pig, the one that we got in the spring. I was trying to think. So the 2 freezers we're going to go through downstairs are another 6-foot chest freezer and then a small 3-foot by 3-foot chest freezer. The smaller of the two is full of cheese and the oldest meat that we have. I am going to assume that most of the meat on the bottom is probably going to not be in the greatest quality anymore. I don't think there's a lot in the bottom of that chest freezer, but we're gonna wait and see until we pull things out. I do my best to make sure that no food is wasted and we're eating through things as often as possible. But with the power outage that we had in April, we condensed a lot of things, moved a lot of things around to be able to keep things cold, especially because we went without a generator for the first two days or 3 days. I can't really remember. So we were moving things around to try to keep the most valuable things cold. So that being said, I don't know where a lot of things are. We tried to organize things after that, but it just hasn't been a priority until right now, because then we got into garden season and preserving all the things. So now is the time to do it. Nothing went bad in the freezers during the power outage. We were able to keep everything cold, but we did have to pull a lot of things out and pull them outside and put them in the garage because it was still cold. It was well cold enough to keep things safe. So that being said, it's time to organize, go through and get rid of anything that isn't great. If there is any meat we're pulling out that is not great for us to eat, it will either go to the chickens or it'll go to our 3 dogs. They will be more than ecstatic to get that. If there is anything in the bottom of that chest freezer, it's most likely going to be game meat. Things like maybe a couple things of bear meat, maybe some venison in the bottom of the freezer. Just little cuts of things that just kind of got overlooked and is now met its fate at the bottom of that chest freezer. But I think what I want to do is in my bigger chest freezer have all of my meat there. In my smaller chest freezer, I want to put anything else, extra cheese, extra dairy that we freeze, and just some random bits and pieces. That way things are a little bit more organized that way, and I'm thinking that's going to work best for our family. So all this pear butter or pear honey, pear butter, pear honey, it could be either or, I suppose. These are all labeled and good to go. I'm going to carry these downstairs. It is a busy one today. We're getting a lot of productive things done today, so I feel really good about these days. These days can be a little overwhelming when you have a lot of things to take care of, but it always feels so good at the end of the day when you realize that you were able to get all those things done, so I'm super happy with that. These are the cherry tomatoes that we rinsed off earlier. I have a bag of these in my chest freezer in the garage. I'm just gonna bring these out there and throw these in that bag. I am just having a gallon-sized Ziploc bag full of all my cherry tomatoes that we're not eating through fast enough, and we will use those throughout the winter to throw in crock pot meals or chilies or stews, anything like that. I don't can diced tomatoes just because I don't think it's worth the effort of canning diced tomatoes, and I just didn't have enough tomatoes this year to make that sacrifice. But freezing these cherry tomatoes gives the same kind of feeling as diced tomatoes, and it's a good way to preserve these if you are kind of not sure what to do with your cherry tomatoes. I have dehydrated these in the past to do like a sun-dried cherry tomato. We did not like those. We were like forcing ourselves to use them. I just didn't like the way they rehydrated in anything, and I've just learned that I prefer just throwing them in the freezer. The skins will float to the top when you throw them in something hot, and it's super easy to just skim the skins right off, and you can put them in chicken scraps or compost pile, whatever it is. But that's where these are gonna go. These are our chocolate cherry tomatoes. I will definitely be growing these again next year. They're a very subtly sweet tomato. They've been fantastic in pasta salads and even just for light snacking, but we have a bunch in the fridge right now. I'm just gonna throw these in the freezer because we just do not need these right now. Here are our ham hocks and our neck bones. The neck bones are looking fantastic. I took a little piece of meat off. They're delicious. Bone marrow is starting to seep out. It's becoming really nice. Ham hocks are these bigger ones here. They're gonna take a little bit more time, but I do want them to be a hair sweeter. I want them to glaze a little bit. So I'm gonna throw a little bit more water, maybe a couple more beef bouillons, and then I'm gonna throw in probably 2 or 3 tablespoons of brown sugar just to give it some sugar in there so it can glaze really nice. I think that's gonna make the meat just super delicious. You could also throw in pineapple juice or something like that, but that's what I have is brown sugar, so that's what we are going to do. very excited about it. It's smelling really, really good, and they're turning out really beautiful. A lot of times when I am trying something new, like these pork hocks, and I'm really intimidated by them, I don't really know what to do with them. They sit in the freezer for a while and they just sit and they sit and they sit. But then it gets to the point where I force myself to be able to use them just like this, and I'm looking at them now and I'm realizing, why have I never cooked these? They look delicious. They're totally up our alley. We love pork ribs and things like that. So sometimes it's just getting over that mental leap of, I don't know what to do with these. I don't even really know what they look like. I've never researched them. Here we are, and now I'm thinking this could very well potentially be one of our favorite cuts of the pork, now that I'm looking at them and seeing how they're roasting up. Okay, so I'm doing a little bit of configuring here just because it wasn't a whole lot of tomatoes. So I have 2 quarts, a pint, and I have just a little bit here. So I pulled out some of these little teeny tiny 4-ounce jars, and I think I'm just gonna can some up like this. And that way when we do like mozzarella sticks or breadsticks or something, I can just pull out these little ones for the kids. Sometimes it's just about making it work. So it's a little bit of a hodgepodge of jar sizes today, but that is a-okay. These have been sitting for a while, so I'm gonna pull out our rhubarb concentrate, and I'm going to let this sit for just a little bit before I put my spaghetti sauce or pasta sauce in, just because this is much hotter than even what our jars are currently. Oh, I just got a call. We have a plumber and electrician coming over today to work down in the basement to finish off obviously some electrical and some plumbing. We basically are just finishing off the basement. We added a whole new master suite down there, and they're coming to get the sink finish installing the sink and the washer and dryer, running some electrical for washer and dryer and whatnot. So I don't think that means we're gonna be going down and cleaning out freezers today, but that is a-okay. We can just do that in another video. I think we got a lot done today. I'm very happy with that. We are just going to load in our pasta sauce here, finish letting our pork hocks and stuff roast. I'll continue to bring you guys along for the pork roast, show you guys how that turns out, but we will just save the freezer cleaning out for another day. And really this just turned into a prep to the freezer clean out. We're getting some things out of the freezer, canning them up today, and just kind of making room. So all in all, I think today still was a very good prep day to the freezer clean out. It's gonna give me an extra day to kind of think about how I want to arrange things in the freezers anyway, which is not that bad of a thing. So let's get these loaded in. These, because I am processing quarts and pints and little 4-ounce jars, we are going to process all of these for the amount of time you have to can your largest jar, which is 25 minutes. These little guys are not going to be hurt by canning for extra time, but our larger jars will be hurt for canning for less time. So you can can all different size jars together as long as you are upping the time for your largest jar size, which is what we are going to be doing today. And then it'll add just a little bit of variety to the shelf. These will be great for like what I said, or even just to throw in lunch boxes. I'll just make sure that I pop the lid for the kids before I put these in lunch boxes, but nonetheless, a-okay. I'm gonna top this off with a little bit more water. I'm gonna put in some cooler water just so that it helps match the temperature of the jars a hair bit better. We're gonna close those up, clean off the kitchen, and get ready for our electrician or plumber to get here. I can tell you this is some of the most tender, delicious, juicy meat I have ever had. I've decided, because we have all this beautiful broth on the bottom of here, I have some pie crust in my fridge I would like to use up. So we are going to make a pork hock and pork neck bone shredded meat pot pie. I'll use the drippings off of this to make our gravy. I'll throw in some garden carrots and some garden produce, and it's gonna be a delicious pork pot pie. So that's what this is going to be destined to be. You need some help? Careful, this is hot. I am just gonna let this meat cool a significant amount. I'm gonna put the top on it just to keep it safe, because my German Shepherd 100% will be in this if she is given the opportunity. So I need to keep it covered, because otherwise she will be in it and I will lose all of this. She's a rescue, so she doesn't always have the best manners when it comes to things like that, but she's a great dog. She's perfect with the kids. And we love her a lot. Just one of her bad habits is if you leave food out, she 100% will take it. Unfortunately, I think there's some issues from the beginning of her life not having a whole lot of food. So if you leave things out, she is on it. But we're gonna cover this, keep it nice. It's 10 after 12. I'm not gonna be constructing these Popeyes probably until around like 3:30, 4 o'clock. And I will probably make 2 of them. I'll bake them both. If we don't get into the second one, I'll just put it in the freezer and we will use it as a convenience meal when we need it. Feeling right off. It is so delicious. Dipping it in a little bit of the drippings because we have the neck bone, so the bone marrow is seeping out. It's delicious. It is fall apart tender. We're just gonna make sure we're not getting any bones out of here. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you waiting for? What are you doing? These are hot. Can you wait for them to cool down for a minute and I'll give you one? Can you just wait? I don't know if you guys can see. Her little tail, she knows she's gonna get a bone. Gentle. You too, gentle. All of these really big chunks of fat here. Some recipes that I read, if your meat were thawed, told you to cut it off. Like here's a big piece. This is just skin with a little bit of fat on it that didn't render out. That's gonna be destined for the dogs. The dogs will absolutely love it. But I'm gonna let this cool off. Whatever meat I don't end up throwing in our pot pies, I will just put in a Ziploc bag and it'll be cooked and ready to go. That way, when my husband wants to throw it in things like bean and bacon soup, or we wanna do a loaded potato soup, something like that. Or, hi, hot, don't touch. Or if it ever comes down to it and we want to do another pork pot pie because this one goes over really well, we'll have the meat cooked and ready to go. It'll just be a convenience item for us. Our spaghetti sauce is just about done. It has about another 5 minutes on it. Then we will take the lid off and let that cool. We'll pull those out of the canner as well. Then I'm probably going to wait until later in the afternoon when she naps and we will whip out some M&M cookies. I am just taking a second to load in our tomato skins and seeds, everything that we strained out from our tomato sauce. This is the first year I am making this. I have already used this powder a couple of times in place of like a tomato paste or something like that to throw in pasta dishes or even in stews, in some soups that I've done so far this year, and I'm really liking it. I do think that I will continue to make this product just because, especially this year, my tomato harvest wasn't fantastic, and it's a good way to stretch that harvest to get the absolute most out of it. And I think it does give you a tomato paste effect with thickening things, giving you that tomato flavor, and it's much less time consuming, and this is a product saver. This is taking something that you would normally throw away and make something out of it versus using tomatoes and cooking them down to almost nothing to get a tomato paste. I think this just makes more sense for me personally. I also took the time here to peel the meat off of our bones. This is by far my least favorite kitchen job. I do not like it. It's a texture thing for me. It's a sensory thing for me. I do not like it. So I kind of had to force myself to do this. This would normally be something my husband does for me, but he was not home. So here we are peeling the meat off of these. And I was shocked about how much meat I was able to pull off of all this. I I didn't think there was going to be an absorbent amount of meat, but this really did have quite a bit of meat, so I was very happy with that. This little Tupperware actually ended up overflowing with the amount of meat we pulled off, so really great. I think in the end we're probably going to get 5 meals of meat off of this, which is fantastic. We got our 2 pot pies. I think I have enough where I could make a whole nother pot pie and still have some left over to use as toppings for other meats or other dishes where we don't quite need as much meat, and really stretch this. So I was very happy with this, and I 100% will no longer be afraid or intimidated to make my ham hocks or use my neck bones. I ended up just straining this out into the top of the roaster pan and letting this sit for a while to drain out as much fat as we could, as much broth as we could. Then I put it in a mason jar and put it in the fridge so that my fat would rise to the top of my mason jar, so that I could scrape the fat off and save the pork fat to use to render down potatoes and things like that. And then all of that juice we end up using for the gravy for our pot pie. At this point, the baby was napping, so I whipped out a batch of cookies and put 1 batch of cookie dough in the oven. And this batch here, I decided to just fill my tray with as many cookie dough balls as I could to put in the freezer to use as really easy cookie dough to just put on the tray and have cookies in just a couple of minutes. A lot of the times I will have a lot of different variety of cookie dough balls in the freezer, and my husband and I, as we were putting the kids to bed, we will put like 2 cookies on a sheet tray and make fresh cookies as the kids go to bed, and him and I will have a little bit of a cookie date and just eat our cookie and play cards or a game of chess or something. Just, it's really nice, and nothing is better than a fresh warm cookie, so I love that, especially heading into the winter time after the kids come in from outside playing in the snow. A lot of the times I will make a fresh batch of cookies just with these freezer dough balls and have a cup of hot chocolate waiting for them, and they can come in and have a warm cookie and a warm cup of hot chocolate, and it just makes it feel that much more special for them, and I love doing it. Then I remember as a kid playing outside in the snow and then coming in and having the house smell like cookies and having a hot cup of chocolate. So I want to have those memories for my kids too. And this is also just great for when I want to make a batch of cookies but don't have time or the energy to dirty my kitchen. These are always appreciated to have in the freezer, and I haven't had any in the freezer for a very long time. I ended up getting 18 cookies in the freezer, which is perfect. It's a good batch size for us. I don't think I can fit much more than that on a normal sheet tray, like my largest sheet tray, if I were cooking them in the oven. I didn't really care about spacing on there as long as they're not super touching for par freezing. Once those have frozen, I'm just gonna throw them in a Ziploc bag, label them what type of cookie they are, and put them in the deep freezer. That way on Sundays when I'm doing a little bit of a kitchen restock for lunch boxes, after school snacks, things like that, one day when I'm really busy, I'm not gonna have to make cookies fresh. I can just pull those out of the freezer. Also, the holidays are coming upon us rather quickly. If you are somebody that wants to do big cookie trays to say thank you to your neighbors or your coworkers, whatever that is, you can start prepping cookies now, put the dough in the freezer, and then one day closer to Christmas, you can just spend a day taking cookie dough balls out of the freezer and baking them, and you'll have a ton of fresh cookies. I don't know how long these last in the freezer because I've never had them last long enough where they have a potential to go bad. So that's great, but I did a double batch. I just use my favorite chocolate chip cookie recipe, and instead of adding in chocolate chips, I dump in a bunch of peanut butter filled M&Ms. Those are our favorite. If you wanted to do regular M&Ms, you can. We do those during the holidays as well. They also make caramel ones. I've never done the caramel M&Ms, but you definitely could. Or you could do a mix. We also do that at Christmas time. Some regular M&Ms and some peanut butter M&Ms. We have used the peanut M&Ms, one with the actual peanuts in it. Those are pretty good too. They're a little bit tougher obviously, but still a great bite. But our favorite is definitely the peanut butter. If you wanted to, you could also get some Reese's Pieces. dice those up in there and throw them in here with your peanut butter M&Ms. That'd be really delicious. So lots of cookies happening today. To wrap up this video, we are just using some Aldi pie crusts here, and these are fantastic. So easy to use. I think that this might be something that I purchase more often to keep in my freezers because these are just fantastic. I am not a good pie crust maker. If you've been around here for any length of time, you know that. I always keep trying, but I don't really think I'm getting a whole lot better. But these were a delicious meal. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me today, cleaning out our freezers, or at least doing a prep for cleaning out our freezers, and doing a whole lot of other things. I hope wherever you are having a fantastic day, and I will see you guys in my next one.